Forgot. Hey guys, welcome back to RTW Rewind. I am your host, Rad Rob, Rob Francois. I hope everybody's doing well all around the world, and thank you for being here. We are live here on HMG YouTube channel, on my RTW brand Facebook page, and on my Rad Rob Gaming YouTube channel as well. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We see people in the chat already. This is going to be a good show. I'm looking forward to it. I recently came across a speech that my guest gave at the Seminole County School Board, which really spoke to me and really kind of got me fired up. Richie Reardon, what's up, buddy? Guys, thank you for being here. This guy's a very fascinating person. Our views are pretty much in line. I agree with just about everything he has to say. But let's not waste any time. He is former WWF NXT referee, current professional wrestler. He's back in the ring now. He's known as Drake Younger on the independent circuit. The very polarizing Drake Wuertz. Drake, what's going on, brother? Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule.
Hey, Rob, I appreciate you having me on. Very blessed to be here. So I'm now polarizing. I guess I get that in my introduction. So that's a new era we're in. So again, thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
As am I, sir. Well, in this day and age with the current political culture and just the way, culture in general is, if you don't agree with a certain narrative, you are polarizing. So that's kind of the state we're in right now. And it's kind of a sad thing. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. If you stand up against a certain narrative, if you kind of question the agenda, whether it comes to vaccines or masks or any of the kind of liberal logic that gets pushed down your throat, then you're labeled as exposing others to extremist content, and then you're polarizing as well. So I guess that's the labels that get slapped on us nowadays. But hey, man, it could be a lot worse, and we're going to keep fighting for truth.
No, that's absolutely right. Yeah, I love the new Facebook thing.
Yeah.
The message that pops up. Are you exposing your friends to extremist views?
Yeah,
I guess it depends what side of the fence you're on. But we learned that through 2020 with the pandemic and with what happened with our presidential election, that you can't really take anything for granted anymore. You have to. Your head's got to be on a swivel. You have to be on top of your game, and you really have to. I mean, the enemy is no longer hiding. I mean, they're hiding in plain sight. It's a scary time we're in, and we'll get into that a little bit later on because I'm sure there's a lot to unpack with that whole thing. But whenever I have a first time guests rather, I'd like to kind of get their entry point into when they became a professional wrestling fan. I'm going to assume that since you got into the business, that you were a fan when you were younger. Would that be a correct statement?
Absolutely, 100%.
Now, what is your first memory of professional wrestling?
Well, I was born in 1984, and as we all know, on January 23rd, 1984, that's when the era of Hulkamania started, whenever he pinned the Iron Sheik at Madison Square Garden. So I was born right at the beginning of the big boom of the 1980s. And so, growing up in Southern Indiana, I can always remember each and every single Saturday morning, Sunday morning after church, I would be planted right in front of that television in my grandfather's house watching professional wrestling. Those are the days of Saturday morning wrestling, and then there was Saturday night wrestling. You had the syndication with WCW, and then whenever fast forwarding into my teenage years, we had ECW on syndication in Indianapolis where I was growing up. So that's kind of where I got exposed to that form of wrestling and the hardcore style. But I think my earliest memories, even as a young baby, my parents would take me to Market Square Arena in Indianapolis and Roberts Stadium in Evansville, Indiana. I don't really necessarily have memories per se of that, but I think my most vivid memory that sticks out to me, that just where I said, okay, I have to be a part of this, and I have to make this my life's mission and my professional dream, was when I was 7 years old at WrestleMania 8 in Indianapolis, Indiana, the Hoosier Dome. Over 67,000 people were there. We were way up in the nosebleeds, but watching the match of Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental Championship, and just looking back on it now as somebody who's in the industry, just the story that those two told. Because I remember as a little kid, I was like, oh wow, there's a good guy wrestling a good guy. Oh, who am I going to cheer for? But just the story and how blood was used in that match to really add meaning and context to the story, it was just incredible. So I think that was, the moment for me right there.
That's one of my favorite pay-per-views. I love WrestleMania 8, and that was a fantastic match. And considering, back then Roddy Piper didn't wrestle long matches. Mm-hmm. He didn't really use a wrestling repertoire. He was more of a brawler. But him and Bret tore the house down. That's probably the best match of Roddy's career.
Yes, absolutely.
In ring wise.
And he was in his best shape then too. He was ripped. He had abs up. Yeah, it was incredible.
It really was. And I mean that's an underrated pay-per-view to begin with. I mean, even Flair and Savage was a fantastic match.
Yes.
So yeah, I have very fond memories of that card. It's pretty awesome that you were there.
El Matador versus Shawn Michaels.
Yep. And you know what? I still don't understand that finish to this day. I really don't. I think it might have been a botched finish. They never showed it on replay. No, that's cool. I had the pleasure of going to WrestleMania 14 in Boston with Shawn Michaels against Steve Austin when Stone Cold won his first WWF title. And then I went to WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta, which had quite possibly the worst match in WrestleMania history with Jerry Lawler against Michael Cole. But hey, it is what it is. So, given the fact you are, you're 36 years old, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir. Yeah,
okay,
be 37 right around the corner.
So I would guess right in your wheelhouse of when you became like a huge fan and considering the fact that you got into deathmatch wrestling, I'm going to go on a limb and say you were an ECW fan, quite possibly.
Absolutely, yeah. 1995 was when I first was exposed to ECW, and it was the Sandman versus Mikey Whipwreck in a ladder match. I was, up late, staying up way past, later than I should have on a Friday night, and back then, if you had the antennas just the right way on the local TV, you could catch this channel in Indianapolis. It was called Hoosier TV 53. If those folks, any Midwest folks out there, remember the old syndicated days. But that came on, and then I fell in love with hardcore wrestling and Sabu. Sabu to this day is, when it comes to wrestling, he's kind of like my biggest inspiration in ring wise. I had the opportunity to wrestle him twice, to work with him in the ring, so that was incredible for me. But then I got exposed to IWA Japan and then Big Japan Pro Wrestling and kind of the Japanese death matches, and then I'll never forget early 2000s. Of course, a lot of us that came in around the early 2000s, late 90s, we were a part of the backyard wrestling phase that was going on at the time. Right. There was a couple backyard wrestling video games. So my friends and I, we were a part of a local backyard wrestling organization in Indianapolis, and we even made the local news in the local paper and stuff like that. But at the end of an RF Video Shoot interview, I saw highlights of a CZW show, and I was like, whoa, this is like a whole nother level. This is like ECW, but like crazier. And that's where I got exposed to CZW and IWA Mid-South, and I was like, okay, this is this is a path that I can realistically go in. Because that's where I went for it.
Yeah, I mean, backyard wrestling was a big thing back then too. So a lot of kids were doing what they saw on TV, and fortunately for me, I'm a little bit older than you. When I was backyard wrestling, that was pre-tables and chairs and light tubes and all that. We weren't taking the same bumps that kids in the late 90s were. But how did you get into the business? How did you even find a way in? Back in that time, what was your kind of process to be like, hey, I want to be a wrestler? How do I go about getting into the business? Who was your contacts?
Yeah, well, I certainly wouldn't recommend this for anybody, but the way that I and a couple of my friends actually got a foot in the door in the business is, ironically, it was through Backyard Wrestling. So we had this backyard fed that we were doing, and we got, like I said, we got coverage in the local paper, the Indianapolis Star at the time, which is actually a pretty big publication. And we got coverage on the local news in Indianapolis. And then we decided, okay, we're going to be done with backyard wrestling, and we're going to rent a venue. We're going to have our ring like inside of an actual building. So we actually ran a show, and we weren't trained. We had no idea what we were doing. We were just, doing tornado DDTs and hurricane ranas, and it made no sense. There was no rhyme or reason. It was just, it was absolutely awful if you watch it nowadays. But, we put ourselves out there and we went for it. But coincidentally, a couple of local promoters saw us, and they just put us on their shows. I mean, we weren't trained. We could just take some cool bumps, I guess. And maybe they thought like some of our friends would buy tickets to the shows. I'm not sure. But through that, I met a gentleman by the name of American Kickboxer, who also wrestled in Juggalo Championship Wrestling as Izzy High. Frank is his name. And so he actually took us under his wing. He trained us, and what we would do, it was old school. We would show up to the venue hours and hours early, set up the ring. He would run us around the building. We were fortunate to go to the Evansville Coliseum to not only train each and every single week. Every Wednesday we had weekly work, and I was a sophomore and then a junior in high school at the time. So, I would go to these shows on Wednesday nights and then go to class the next day. I wouldn't get home till 3 or 4 in the morning, and just chasing that dream, for lack of a better term. But he would train us before the show during the day, and then they would throw us in these matches on the show. So it was almost like on the job training. I mean, we're running stair laps, we're doing hundreds and hundreds of squats, and just doing class, and just riding in the car. I got a lot of education riding in the car as well. But then he introduced us to Ian Rotten in IWA Mid-South, started training with him and Chris Hero. And that was just like the old school, just kind of beat it out of you. Like they really wanted to see who was going to be the strong, because only the strong survive in the business of pro wrestling at the time. And they almost made you want to quit. You know what I mean? Like just beating the tar out of you, but teaching you. If you made it through that, then you were taught and you were given the opportunity. Doors were open for you. And, from there, I was able to be on some DVDs that got distributed through Smart Mark Video. My big break was King of the Death Matches 2006, where Ian needed somebody to do a barefoot thumbtacks match with JC Bailey. I hadn't really done official death matches yet, and so I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. This could be my big opportunity. And JC Bailey, who's passed away a little over 10 years ago, way ahead of his time, incredible performer, incredible person. I love him. I miss him so much. But we tore the house down, and that's what got me to CZW. So that's kind of like the nickel version of how I got my big break.
I mean, you're pretty much, almost on the same path as the Hardy Boys. I mean, the Hardy Boys weren't trained either. They did stuff that they saw on TV on their trampolines. They did state fairs and stuff like that. They started their own promotion and they got noticed. I mean, CM Punk had a kind of a similar path as well. So
it's like the Hardy Boys, but oops, sorry. It's like the
Nope, lost him. I think he hit end. We'll get him back here in a second. He just texted me. Whoops. Yeah, dropped his phone. So, hope you guys are enjoying the interview so far. You gotta love technology. He'll be back on here in a second. So, the audio version of this podcast should be up tomorrow, I believe. Typically, I drop on Sunday. But while you guys are waiting, you can check out my Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/Rad Turtles Wrestling. I got plenty of merch. You can represent the show. Here, I'll even put all there you go. There's my info for you. Check. Yes, I am a shill. That is what I do. As we wait for Drake to get back here. Some things just don't go right. It is what it is. There he is. And we're back.
Sorry about that.
I assume you dropped the phone and hit the end.
Yeah, something popped up here and dropped the phone. I apologize for that. But as I was saying, similar path of the Hardy Boys, except they didn't do 200 light tube matches, and they obviously made a whole lot more money.
Yeah, no, for sure. That is absolutely right. You know, one thing I like what you said about your story is, you know, you were able to sit in the car on car rides and learn from some of the vets, and you know, you paid your dues, got the crap beat out of you at certain points, which, you know, that's probably the last generation that will have to go through that. You know, now with the performance centers, you know, it's, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but you're not going to get the beatings. You know what I mean? You're not going to get stretched.
Yeah.
You're not going to, you know, back in the days, everybody knows the old guys tried to, you know, see if you're made, you know, see if you're tough, see what you're made out of, and maybe try to scare you because, you know, it's very, very hard to get into the business. And you're probably one of the last, you know, crops of talent that ever had to go through, you know, things similar like that, because it's a completely different environment now.
Yeah, and I think that generation of the early 2000s and like those the first crop of Ring of Honor guys, you know, like your Low Keys, your Briscoe brothers, and you know, Cabana Punk, and then like all the Midwest IWA Mid-South guys. I think that was kind of the last of the, you know, one of the last parts of like that old school mentality. And look, some of it has evolved for the better, but as you said, you know, you really had to be the cream of the crop to make it into the business then at that time. You know, because when it's done right, it really is the greatest form of entertainment on the earth, and not everybody should be able to be in it. You know, you got to be tough physically and mentally, and you know, it's a grind, and it's a full-time gig. We're, you know, live action actors in front of a live crowd with one take. We do our own stunts per se, and we got to be actors. We got to be entertainers. We got to remember where the camera is. We got to hit our times. Oh, and on top of that, it really freaking hurts. So, oh, and sometimes you got to bleed. Yeah,
it does. When you got into the deathmatch style of wrestling, what were your long-term goals? I mean, wrestling that style for a number of years, as you know, is not good for you, not good on your body. What was your end game? What did you want to accomplish? Was it to get to the WWE?
At the time, as a 21, 22-year-old kid, I mean, I didn't have any end game, man. I was just, honestly, I just wanted to get in there and just have some fun and make a little money and travel the world. This is well before I got married, well before I became a father, well before I found Christ. And so, you know, it was kind of that rock and roll lifestyle. You know, I was living that life. And, you know, but at the same time, I don't want to take away from the work ethic that I and others had, you know, guys like Scotty Vortex and Danny Havoc, you know, Nick Gage, all those guys that were around at that time. And Nick Gage is still going strong. But, we, you know, like for instance, me and Scotty, we shared a studio apartment. The rent was like $300 a month. You know, and this is kind of shows you like, this is like the mid 2000s at this point, because I couldn't keep a working cell phone number. I committed everything to just be an independent wrestler. You know, I left jobs and I was like, I'm going for this full blown. And so a lot of times I couldn't keep my cell phone on. And so Scotty's girlfriend had a password to the local university's computer lab. So we would go to the computer lab, kind of like kayfabe and pretend like we were college students. And we would get on there and we would get on MySpace. And that's how we would get our bookings and promote ourselves and like, you know, receive our playing confirmations from CZW and stuff like that. So, man, it was like week to week, day to day, kind of starting off. Like it was a grind, you know, sleeping on a mattress and eating Spam and all that. Like the first time I went to Germany, I got a plane ticket to Germany and got my passport, and I left the country. Like, think about this. I left the country with $15 in my pocket going across the world. You know what I mean? So, dude, it was just living life on the edge of a lightning bolt. But as I got more into, you know, developed maturity and saw what this could be, my immediate goal was to go international and go to Japan for doing the deathmatch stuff. And then eventually, whenever I met my wife and when I got clean and sober, and then I, you know, started to get on the path where I was truly finding Christ, I realized this isn't a life that I can live. I can't, like, you know, do this. I'm going to use the platform that I've built as a deathmatch wrestler. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to lose weight. And I'm going to actually commit to being a straight up technical wrestler, still use some elements of hardcore per se. But then that's going to kind of help me be able to stand out. So I just wanted to use it as, looking back, use it as a platform to be able to stand out and not just be a deathmatch guy that just, punches and cuts and stuff like that. We always wanted to kind of do stuff different, that whole breed of guys. And, it's transcended into some of the guys that you see today.
Now, when you officially got signed by the WWE,
yes.
What was the reason they used you as a ref and not as an in-ring talent?
What was the reasoning? Is that what you asked? I'm sorry. Yeah. So I actually, summer 2013, I'd never tried for anything with WWE. I stopped doing death matches a few months prior. I was working for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla in Los Angeles. William Regal came out to see a couple of shows. He saw me there. And then, I was always really close friends with John Moxley, who was Dean Ambrose at the time. He's a CZW guy, and he was in my wedding, and like we're close friends. And so I asked him, I was like, hey man, like I'm not trying to I was like, I want to see if there's anything with WWE. Like, can you give me an email address to send somebody, some my pictures and stuff? So he did, and I sent in an email. Got booked as an extra talent in Sacramento and San Jose. This was during the time when Ryback was doing like the bully gimmick. And so Ryback beat me up and he threw me over the table. And I kind of, took about the craziest bump that I possibly could because I wanted to kind of get noticed, and landed on my head on the concrete and flipped over. And then, Triple H made it a point to come over and thank me and stuff like that. And then literally like 2 weeks later, I got an email that I was getting that I was going to have an opportunity for a tryout at the newly built Performance Center. Went to the Performance Center, tried out as a wrestler, 3-day camp. It was incredibly tough and grueling. It was an awesome experience. At the end of the camp, William Regal pulled me to the side and he said, we could potentially bring you in as a wrestler, and, you might have a good couple-year run. Like, you got a bunch of scars and your body's beat up from all these death matches and stuff. He goes, but we might have an opportunity for opening as a referee. And I think with your experience, you would be able to be more beneficial in that regard. And you can have a long run, and I think that would be the best where we get the most mileage out of you if you're okay with putting the wrestling stuff behind you. And, I was like, oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It was just weird. It was like totally, the way God moved in the situation, because my wife was pregnant with our second child, and she was kind of just tired of the whole grind and me coming home beat up and leaving, going to Germany, coming home for a couple of days, going to Japan, coming home for a couple of days, just that whole vibe. And she was like, look, at the end of the year, find a real job, or like a regular job, or wrestling's done. And then this happened, and I was like, hey, honey, they offered me a job as a referee. Does that count? She's like, yeah, that's awesome. And so, we moved to Florida, and, the rest, as they say, is history. So I had like 12 years on the independents, sent in one email to WWE, got booked as an extra, got a tryout, got hired. And like, as I got into the system, I was like, gosh, some of these kids, I feel so terrible for them. They've been extras like 30 times. And like, I have like the most atypical path to like getting signed with WWE. It was just like bam, 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 sign. So I was really fortunate in that regard. It doesn't happen often, so I'm lucky.
Like you said, God moved, and put that opportunity in front of you. And as a fellow believer myself, I mean, there's, a lot of people think there's coincidences, but there are no coincidences in this universe. I mean, everything does happen for a reason. I know that's cliche, but those things were put in your favor. Because
my wife had been praying. My wife had been praying for that too, and it came to fruition, and it's amazing. And moved us to Florida, which is home. I love it here. I've lived here for 7 years now, never leaving. So it's incredible, man, how it works.
Now, when you got to the Performance Center, I mean, you were there, at the inception, when it first started. How blown away were you by just the giant machine that is WWE?
Man, it was. In early on when I first got there in 2014, I think at the most that we had, there was maybe 50, 55 signed talent total. Now it's 125 easily that are in that building. So, I mean, it was big to me at the time, but looking back, like it was like a grassroots, NXT We kind of wanted to like break away from the other brands. Like we had this early on in NXT, it was this really super cool like team mentality. You know what I mean? We just wanted to go every single week and just put on the best shows possible. But the Performance Center in and of itself, I was blown away. I was like, wow, I get to come to work here every day. Like this is incredible. You know, I'm getting paid to work out, and like coming from those barns and stuff that we trained in and the shows, and now it's like almost like this super Walmart of pro wrestling. You know, everything you want is under one roof. So I was blown away, man. It was awesome. And luckily, fortunately enough for me, a lot of the people that were there, a lot of the talent I had worked with on the independents before. So I kind of, you know, I knew them, they knew me, they knew that I loved the business. And, you know, so I kind of had an easy foray going in.
And growing up a WWF fan, I mean, how cool is it that you're working for them now? I mean, that's got to be the little kid in you had to be jumping up and down. It's the kid in the candy store. I mean, you got the keys to the castle. You're able to see behind the curtain and see what goes on in the land of Oz. I mean, how cool is that as just a wrestling fan?
It was awesome. I mean, you know, my first week there, and I'm helping build the rings or whatever I was doing, and then I look over to the side. I was walking through the office, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is Dusty Rhodes' office, and like Dusty sitting in there, like, you know, I said hello to him, and just I was like, wow, like I'm going to work with Dusty Rhodes. Like, so no, man, it was incredible, and like I said, a lot of my friends from the independents were there. A lot of people that I worked with, so we were kind of relishing in it. Those early days were just awesome, and then we finally, when we got the opportunity to take NXT on the road. Like, wow, what a crew. And, you know, forgive me if I'm kind of going off track here, but like the crew in like 2015, 2016, that roster will never be touched. I mean, you had the Vaudevillains, you had Enzo and Cass, you had Sami Zayn, you had Kevin Owens, gosh, Baron Corbin, American Alpha, Revival, having the best tag team matches I've ever been in the ring for. Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, Becky Lynch. You know, Angelo Dawkins, go up and down the line. It was a stacked roster. Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura came in 2016. The ref crew was incredible. You know, myself, Eddie Arango, Sean Bennett, Danilo. Like, it was like, it will never be replicated. And Bobby Roode, Hideo Itami. I mean, it was awesome. I could go on and on. It was incredible.
No, I agree. That was a stacked roster. And I went to a house show when they first started touring. It was in Nashville. I don't remember. It was a small auditorium. I don't remember the name of it.
Oh, yeah, the Municipal Auditorium. One of my favorite buildings ever. It is so loud. The acoustics are incredible.
They really are.
Yes.
Finn Balor was the NXT champion, and man, he was over. I mean, they were selling his demon gimmicks and all that, and I mean that guy was so good. Samoa Joe was there, like you said.
Yep.
I think they wrestled the Vaudevillains.
Yep.
Yeah, man, it really was a good crew. I had a fantastic.
Blake and Murphy were on at that time too.
Yep. I mean, yeah, you're right. They'll never ever be able to duplicate that again.
Mm-hmm.
How did you enjoy being a referee? Did you? I know it's obviously different than being a wrestler, but how long did it take you to kind of get into the groove and be like, yeah, all right, this is cool. This is what I want to do.
I mean, I got into the groove right away. I was fortunate enough to. You know, the other referees that were there, they helped me out a lot. I got to learn from like Mike Chioda and Charles Robinson. And then Sean Bennett was very beneficial in helping me day to day. Early on, you know, Rudy Charles, Dan Engler helped me out a lot as well. So, no, Danilo, he was incredible to be with. So I just fell in love with it right away. I loved it because from being in the ring, I know what I would want out of a referee. And so, man, I got into the groove right away, and just it was incredible. It became my professional passion. Absolutely love being a referee in WWE. There's a lot of people don't know the pressure that is on a referee and the responsibilities that position carries. And so, you know, I was very, very proud and honored to be trusted with that responsibility.
Yeah, I've had Jimmy Corderas on the show several times, and you know, I spoke with him about the fact that referees nowadays don't seem to play the integral role that they used to. I mean, they used to be part of the finish at some point. You know, there used to be a lot of ref bumps there. I know they're giving a lot of instruction now, and they have the earpiece, but back in the day, the referee's job was very, very important to keep the flow of the match going, to always be in the right position. Not to say that doesn't happen now, but it feels like referees aren't used in certain ways as much as they used to be. Is that fair? It's a different way to present the match, with the referee kind of being in the shadows and not kind of being, on the same level as part of the show.
Fair point, but they make a conscious effort to make sure that the referee is not to make sure that the referee is not part of taking any attention away from the match. The referee's job is there to add to the match. Now, I will say, whenever ref bumps do happen nowadays, they mean a lot more. You know what I mean? They're very particular about those. But I can definitely see both ways. So it's a fine line and a middle ground that you got to have. You don't want the referee arbitrarily doing backflips and cartwheels, but at the same time, you don't want a referee that just stands in the corners like. So there's a fine line where you can kind of add a little bit of personality, I guess, and flavor, but definitely don't want to take away from the true show, which is the talent in the ring.
Yeah, Aubrey Edwards is kind of always getting a bad rap for being a little bit too animated, being a little bit too over the top, kind of almost going into business for herself. I don't know if you know her personally or if you've watched her officiate matches, but she's known for kind of, almost trying to outshadow the boys and girls in the ring.
Oh, I know Audrey very well. She actually came through WWE for a tryout and a couple of appearances before she started up with AEW. Very kind person, very cool, always great to me. She has her style. I don't, necessarily watch each and every week, but she has her style, she has her flavor, and she's doing great.
No, she is, and I don't want to discredit what she does at all. It just kind of just the old school guy in me. I hear you. I'm an guy, like you are too. But you did end up working your way up to being the head of referees, so they had a lot of confidence in you, and obviously they thought you were doing a great job as to where you were the lead official. Were there any added responsibilities that they gave you as being the head referee, or was it just a title?
No, absolutely. There's plenty of added responsibilities at the performance center. At the time there were 7 rings, so you and the team that you're with, you're responsible for making sure the upkeep and the maintenance of the rings is taken care of. Doing the scheduling, assigning the referees when we were on the road, assigning which referees went to what shows, and just kind of being that liaison between the other referees and the office, and then I got the opportunity to book the extra talent as well through that. So I was able to, contact the extra talent, book them, sort them, process their medical, process their payroll, make sure everything was taken care of them with the shows and stuff like that. So that was another job that I enjoyed doing, another responsibility that I loved having, because it was the independent kids, and I got to be the person to let them know, like, hey, we're going to give you an opportunity to come to a WWE event, be a part of our show, and be an extra talent. Because I remember when I got that call. So I got to be the person on the other side giving that call to other people. And I always wanted to treat them super nice, super kind, and just let them know, like, hey, enjoy yourselves. Yes, this is an opportunity for you, but soak this all in, because who knows if you'll ever have it again.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool. One question I actually wanted to go back to when you first started NXT, the promo classes from Dusty. Everybody talked about the fabled promo classes. How cool was it to kind of watch Dusty in his element, teach the younger talent how to cut a promo? Because you're obviously a great talker yourself, so you have a natural ability to speak. Not every wrestler kind of has that, you know what I mean? They kind of have to let their in-ring speak for itself, but how cool is it, man? Like you said, to have Dusty Rhodes working there, a guy that you watched growing up.
It was awesome. It was awesome. One of the referees' responsibilities at the time is we would do the lights and the sound and stuff for the promo classes. So I got to sit there, and I was with Dusty for I came in 2014. He passed away in the early summer of 2015. So I had the opportunity to be around him and just to see what he could bring out of people that would come up and they would be shy and they'd be timid, and they wouldn't want to look at the camera or anything like that. And he could just bring so much out of people. It was also just cool hearing him tell stories from back in the Crockett Territory days, and being on stage in Lakeland, Florida with Waylon Jennings and all this stuff. It was incredible, man.
He was a rock star, dude. I mean, he really was.
Yep.
That guy was so charismatic, and it's very, very sad that he passed because he did a lot in that early days for NXT to kind of put them on the map. And you look at the crew they have now with Shawn Michaels and Road Dogg, and was Terry Taylor still there?
Oh yeah, Terry's still going. Sharp as a tack. I love Terry. He's one of the people I got along with the absolute most. Him and I we're real close. I kind of look at him as almost like a father figure in the wrestling business. He really took me under his wing, and he did a lot for me, helped me out a lot.
You can take him under the wing. He always gets crap for the Red Rooster gimmick, and
Oh, did I say wing and rooster? I didn't mean to do that. I brought that up to you. But no, Terry's incredible. He really teaches people how to go from just being a pro wrestler to being a top guy. And he taught me a lot about refereeing, and then just personal life as well. We would talk faith. We talk our faith in Christ. He was always very beneficial, giving somebody a helping hand. Real quick story. I'll never forget one time I was leaving the Performance Center, and we just had one vehicle, and my wife needed a vehicle. And, I live, I don't know, probably 12, 13 miles from the Performance Center. And so at the time, just to save some money, I was taking the city bus, and then I was riding my bike to the Performance Center. And then I was walking back to get my bike, and Terry's like, "Hey, you need a ride?" I was like, "Terry, I live way far away from you." He's like, "You work for WWE. You don't need to be taking the bus. Come on." And then just little stuff like that. He was super, super kind and always paying for people's meals. And no, Terry's the best. He's class. He's really class.
Yeah. From what I heard, he wasn't always that way. I don't know if getting saved, obviously made him a different person as well as Shawn Michaels and others. But I've heard the same things lately about Terry. And I mean, there's a reason why he's there. He has a fantastic mind for professional wrestling. So
it's second nature to him.
Yeah, it's good to see the old guys still there because, I mean, once they're gone, who are the next crop going to learn from? You know what I mean? Yeah. Once even Shawn Michaels and Triple H, it's going to be scary to see, who teaches these kids, 20, 30, 40 years from now. I want to put over your work for awareness about ending child trafficking and human trafficking, because that's a very important thing that you do right now. And I'm sure a lot of people want to know, the question in everybody's mind is, was that a big factor in your release from the WWE?
Coincidentally, it did have something to do with it, from my estimation. A little over a year ago, my wife and I really got involved in raising awareness for human trafficking. I'd always had this pretense and this misconception about human trafficking. I just wasn't really brought up much, and I thought it was like out of the movie Taken, where you're kidnapped and sold in the black market and stuff like that. And then I really saw the Trump administration and President Trump really put the fight against human trafficking on the forefront of his issues in his platform. 2017, 2018. The executive orders for the $400 million that he put against fighting human trafficking and declaring war on the MS-13s, and the everything they donated to survivors of human trafficking as well, the funds that he set aside for that, and of course the border crisis and the crackdown there. So he was just, he really kind of brought that to the forefront. And then I discovered an organization called Operation Underground Railroad, which is a 501c3, and they partner with law enforcement and government agencies to rescue victims of human trafficking. To date, they've rescued over 4,000 victims, and they've helped arrest, I believe it's up to 3,000 predators. They do a lot of work domestically with their canine program and their awareness and how they help local law enforcement with budgeting and stuff like that. And so I found, discovered Tim Ballard, who's the founder of OUR, worked for the Department of Homeland Security, gave up his job and his security, his pension, so that way he could the handcuffs would be off and he would be able to fully fight human trafficking without any kind of limitations. And so I got linked up with OUR, and then through that, I got linked up with my local county task force and these other incredible nonprofit groups here in the Orlando area that are banding together to raise awareness and raise funds and to help fight human trafficking, help our law enforcement, because Florida ranks third in the nation for rates of human trafficking. In 2019, there was over 900 calls made to the human trafficking hotline about the state of Florida. We got a large agricultural area, large tourist area, our major airports, people coming in all the time, 1,000 people moving here every day. So, the demand is there, and we need to kind of not be afraid to get out there and speak up about it. But, organizations like Bikers Against Trafficking, Paving the Way, United Abolitionists, they're doing amazing work. But going back to your question of tying that into WWE, I'll never forget whenever I partnered up with Longwood City Commissioner and former WWE superstar Matt Morgan. We were going to link up together to do an event in Longwood at Ryder Park, doing a movie in the park where we were going to raise funds for OUR and put out like an outreach and awareness to the local community about human trafficking, what it is, what we can do about it, and how we can help. And all of a sudden, I got like attacked like crazy, and it was the enemy just on attack. I got messages from dirt sheet writers, and then the head of talent development from the company called me and said, "Hey, I think this group's controversial. It's human trafficking. It's pretty controversial." And meanwhile, like at the same time, so I'm partnering with people to raise awareness about child sex trafficking and human trafficking in my community, like raising funds for a great cause, a vetted cause. But the hypocrisy was just, looking back, it was insane, because at the very same time that was happening, coworkers and people that I was with were praised and encouraged for raising funds to bail out BLM and Antifa Marxists that burned down cities and burned down buildings and rioted and looted, and like they're promoting and donating to Marxist groups, and they totally get praised for that. But like, heaven forbid I do a fundraiser in my local community to raise awareness about human trafficking, and if I post about child sex trafficking, or as a Christian man, if I post about abortion or anything of the sort like that, then like I'm chastised and like, oh, you need to stop. You can't talk about that. That's controversial. It's just such a double standard. And that's when I first realized, like, okay, like this maybe isn't the place for me.
Yeah, I do understand that, and it is kind of controversial, but I mean, it's also something that needs to be brought to people's attention. I mean,
yeah,
put somebody in, somebody in the company, has kids. How would they feel if their kid got kidnapped? You know
right.
what I mean? I completely get what you're saying, and
yeah.
a lot of people do think that because of your conservative beliefs that kind of worked against you in the company, and wrestling is a funny business to begin with, but now with all these companies trying to be PC and trying to please everybody, and not just wrestling, it's across the board. I mean, if it's sports, sure. Amazon, I don't need to turn on Amazon and see Black Lives Matter. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying that during the time of the George Floyd case, that's all you saw. No matter what it was. I was out to dinner with my wife tonight, and they had ESPN on the TV, and there was a documentary about George Floyd. It was an hour-long documentary from one of the witnesses that was there filming it. And I said to my wife, that's all well and good. What does this have to do with sports? And why is this playing on ESPN? She wasn't an athlete. They didn't mention anything about any other athlete. It was just an hour-long documentary about the death of George Floyd and this woman that unfortunately was there to witness it. Through the pandemic last year, we saw, Major League Baseball, football. I mean, they all kind of walked that line. Why can't we just play sports? And I know WWE didn't get too involved in that. But as a big football fan, I just want to watch football. You know what I mean? I don't need to be preached at. I understand wanting to bring awareness for that. But, if you opposed what was going on at that time, you were labeled a racist, or, if you're against Pride Month, you're a homophobe. It is a double standard, and it is a different time that we're living in right now. And, a lot of companies are trying to placate to the less than 2%. And I don't understand it. Obviously, we need need a revival to get out of the times that we're in right now.
Absolutely. If you look at last summer as well, during all that, my friend Jackson Riker, who's a Marine who served this country, fought overseas. During the midst of that, he put out a tweet thanking President Trump, that he put over President Trump, and then this guy gets attacked. And that's fine, freedom of speech. You want to say whatever you want about him, that's cool. But then he's taken off TV, and just people labeling him with all these awful descriptions, calling him a racist and stuff like that. And so at that point, because there was so many people in the locker room who wouldn't go out there on a limb and post anything to stand up for him or have his back. They would just privately message him. So I put it out there. I had Twitter at the time. I don't have it anymore, because if you say the sky's blue, on there, 900 people are gonna attack you for just saying the sky's blue. But I put that. I went out there and I had his back, and I said, Chad, thank you for all you've done for this country and for what you've done for this community. You're a good man. And then the attacks came on me. But at some point, people got to have courage. You got to have a courage, and you're gonna have to take a stand. And true courage is taking a stand and speaking up, even if your voice cracks, and especially when you don't know what the end results are going to be. I knew at some point the plug was going to get pulled from me in WWE. I knew it, but I knew there were battles that the Lord put on my heart that were way more important to me than selling my soul and going along with the narrative that they were pushing. So, and at some point, you got to defy. You got to have some proper civil disobedience. And like you said, we need a revival. Our nation needs to put God first and foremost back into everything. We need to turn from our wicked ways, humble ourselves, and seek His face, and He'll heal our land. We're never going to prosper as a nation like we should unless we turn to God.
You're absolutely right about that. And that's what my preacher preaches every single week, because it is, there are dark times that we're in right now, and there's only one way out of it. And that is right. If people turn their face to the Lord, He will take care of this country. But there's so many opposing forces, Drake, that
there is.
It is literally going to take a miracle to get us out of this.
Man, it's a spiritual battle right now. It really is. We got to fight for our faith, our family, our freedoms. But having that relationship with Jesus Christ, it's so reassuring knowing that. And I invite anybody that's watching this, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, please message me on Facebook. I would love to explain to you what that looks like, and love to share scripture with you and share a little bit about my testimony, because it is the greatest gift that you can ever receive, is the gift of salvation, the gift of eternal life through a relationship with Christ.
That is absolutely 100% correct. And, we've been talking for 47 minutes now.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm sure people here in chat can probably have probably figured out that you're not a crazy, right-wing lunatic. How come you're being labeled as a right-wing extremist, or, one of the Proud Boys, or part of QAnon? That's the big thing right now, is that you're part of QAnon. Because of your association with certain things. One person in particular has been lots of people have been vocal about you. But one person in particular that is beloved by some and hated by many is Jim Cornette. Now, Jim Cornette is a genius when it comes to professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. He's that old-time carny, territory guy that waves the liberal flag. Now, mm-hmm. You yourself as king of the death matches, who's representing the red, what do you think wrestling has to do to evolve and kind of get out of that old school carny territory mentality? Like guys like Cornette and some of the older guys, still they don't like the current product. How does the business have to evolve to kind of try to appease both sides of the crowd?
The business is never going to appease everybody. No, entertainment in and of itself is never going to appease anybody. Or everybody. It's so, the business is so subjective. And like I said, I'm not too terribly invested in wrestling anymore. I love wrestling for what it is. I love for what it's done for my family. Like the house I'm in right now is because of wrestling, and I love the experiences that I've had. And I'm still doing some bookings and stuff involved, like when I want to give back and when it's right for me and for the people that I'm working with. But in regards to Jim Cornette, look, I haven't even ever listened to anything he said about me. Apparently, he spent a lot of time talking about me. You know, I'm just a referee from a developmental territory. So apparently, I kind of, pinched a nerve in him. But look, I'm going to keep fighting the battles that are important to me. I'm going to stand up for Christ. I'm going to stand up for the Constitution. I'm going to stand up against tyranny. And look, that's what I believe. Everything I am is based on, before I'm a conservative, before I'm a Christian, before I'm a conservative, before I'm a Republican, before I'm a constitutionalist, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. And, with Jim Cornette, I know he doesn't believe in God. He is a liberal leftist lunatic from what I hear. And so I have what does it matter to me what he says about me? He doesn't have any stock in how I live my life or how I pursue. I'm married to a beautiful wife. I have 3 beautiful children. I have a home in Florida. I'm blessed by the blood of Jesus Christ. So what more do I need? I don't need to worry about what Jim Cornette's saying about me.
Yeah, I mean, if he wants to spend his free time, talking about you and how crazy you are, so be it. I mean, the fact that you don't sell it or don't even pay attention to it probably upsets them even more. But I mean, like you said, you have a great line. Why do you have to worry about what other people think about you? Because there's plenty of people. I was reading comments on Twitter, Drake, about the recent promo you cut in your return match to the ring. And I hate going down that rabbit hole and looking down threads and seeing what people say. But the narrative seems to be right now about you that because you're on the opposite side, because you are on the right side, which is actually the right side, but you're a nut job, or you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, or you're why are people against you fighting for human trafficking? Like it's like right isn't right anymore. It drives me nuts, dude. I try not to be partial when it comes to these interviews, but it drives me nuts that common sense is not common anymore. And what used to be right is wrong, and it's upside down. Right. It's bizarro world, like Jerry Lawler likes to say about Toronto.
Yeah, it sure is. So they took the time to watch the benefit show that I did to raise money for victims of human trafficking. Okay, great. Hey, they took time to watch the show. Then that helps get the cause out there. But look, that night we had a packed house, standing room only. It was a great turnout, and we raised a lot of money for Bikers Against Trafficking. And we had patriots in the house. We had MAGA Trump people in the house. So we played to that audience because those are the people that I'm around here in Central Florida. This is conservative country around here. So that's where we were at. Look, if you oppose anything, or if you go against any bit of the liberal agenda, or if you even question the narrative, you get these labels. And one of those labels is always the QAnon conspiracy theorist. Like, I've never endorsed any of the QAnon stuff. Somebody made a comment that I posted a picture with General Michael Flynn. Like, General Michael Flynn served this country. You know what I mean? Like, General Michael Flynn is awesome. Like, he is so. And so they're like, oh yeah, he's QAnon. It's almost like they try to poke holes and just try to catch you. And no, he's a QAnon guy. He's a QAnon. Just because you even mentioned anything about sex trafficking, or if you're a supporter of President Trump, or if you're a conservative, or if you go to church, or if you question any of this mandatory vaccine, mandatory masking, tyrannical nonsense, if you have anything, that's what they throw at you. And so what do we do? Hey, we use it to our advantage. They call us deplorables. Hey, we're the deplorables. They call us the extremists. Hey, look at our Facebook frames. We're sharing extremist content. So if you stand on the word of God, you stand on the Constitution, you stand for freedom, you oppose the murder of the unborn child, you stand up against human trafficking, I guess you're an extremist. So call me an extremist. I don't care. But until Christ returns for his church, I'm going to keep fighting.
That's absolutely right. And as we wrap up here, as I said at the beginning of the show, your speech from the Seminole County School Board really is what got me interested in what your story was and what you stand for. And I do want to play a clip of that right now and get your thoughts on it and what you were thinking at the time.
Okay.
For the past 10 months, concerned parents have pleaded with you in an attempt to restore parental rights when it comes to the health of their children. They have cited science, logic, studies rooted in truth from well-qualified medical professionals to convince you that the harm of forcing a mask on a child far outweighs the risk of COVID-19. Yet you have continued to allow these precious children to be victims of this tyrannical overreach. Masks are dehumanizing. They erase our facial expressions and discourage communication. Children need to see what adults and other kids are feeling. Part of socialization comes from reading and interpreting the facial expressions of others. Masks are encouraging our children to live in a constant state of fear. Let's ponder what a young child's thoughts are on a daily basis as they get on the school bus to come to school. I can't breathe this air. It'll make me sick or it may kill me. I'm going to get in trouble for not having my mask on. I hate this thing, but the adults are making me put it over my face. These are the thoughts that have gone through many of our kids' heads. And last month, Mr. Smith from the Teachers Union made a point to state his concern for the teachers. Well, let me inform you, Mr. Smith, that here in Seminole County, God's country, we put the needs of our children first.
So obviously that was a very powerful thing to say. I have to ask you, as you're looking at the board there, what were the looks on their faces when you're going into promo mode?
That one's from a couple of school board meetings ago. I thought you were going to play the one from a couple weeks ago. So
that was the first one that I saw that got me kind of like, hey,
yeah,
you from NXT? And I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know he stood for that.
Yeah, no, just looking at them in their eyes when you look up at them. And first off, they have in every school board across the country almost, they have it positioned, the podium in position to where they're looking down at you. And then you got to fill out a card to speak to them. And then you have a certain time to speak to them. And if anybody applauds or kind of gets out of line, you could be threatened to be thrown out of the board. So they put it purposely at a very intimidating position, as if they're over you. But we're the taxpayers. We're paying their salary. We elected them. Like, we should be looking over them. They should be looking up at us. But anyway, we're just looking in their eyes. And look, it wasn't just me. Hours and hours of parents in this county and in the school board revolution across the country. They are finally waking up to the indoctrination that's happening through the school boards, and the COVID pandemic and everything just really put that at the forefront. From all the abuse that they had on children, from forcing them to wear masks, putting plexiglass desks around them. Kids on the baseball team that I coached, the little league team, a lot of times they were told that they had to contact trace because somebody in their class was exposed to somebody that may or may not have tested positive for. It was just psychological warfare that they were playing with these children all year. It was the sector of society that was least affected by this. At that point that I did that speech, Governor DeSantis had lifted all local emergency orders when it came to COVID. So all the masks were off for everybody else except children. And at a kindergarten graduation, 5 and 6 year olds were forced to wear their masks while these school board members walked around with their free faces taking pictures. Tell me that is not wrong. So we stood up and we called them out. And at the meeting after this, there was more parents. We came out and we spoke, and then finally they took the mask off the children. But, parents got to wake up and they got to hold these school boards accountable. And all local elected officials, they got to hold them accountable. You got to show up. You got to get involved because, like it or not, politics affects the way that you live your life. It affects your community, and more so even at a local level than the federal level. Yes, it's important who the president is. Yes, it's important who your senator and your congressman are. But to me, it's even more important who your governor is, more important who your county commissioner, your city commissioners, your sheriff. Sheriff is incredibly important, and your school board members, because that's where it really affects your local community. And as we saw last year, it's important to have strong local leaders. Look at our, Governor DeSantis. I know in Tennessee, you guys were, fairly free most of the time as well. But there has to be a time where, you got to have strong local leaders that'll defy the federal overreach. And if those leaders aren't doing their job, they need to be replaced no matter what party they affiliate with. So, no, man, like we gotta get involved. We gotta speak out. And, people were like, "Oh, your kids aren't even in public school. It's none of your business." Like, no, these are kids in my community, and these are the future leaders of our country. And they don't have. A lot of them cannot get up there and speak. They don't have a voice. So we need to get up there and we need to speak for them. And we need to make sure that we push back against this godless indoctrination, these traces of critical race theory, and this LGBTQ like perversion that's being pushed on children and shoved down their throats. You got to stand up against that, because otherwise, we're going to lose our country.
Yeah, I mean, my preacher brought up a couple Sundays ago the fact that there are, people in society now that are saying that if you don't let your kid choose what gender they want to be, that's child abuse. I mean, it's insane, the ideology that's being put on our kids, like you said, indoctrinating them into all this. That's a very, very slippery slope to go down. And I know we don't have time to get into that whole thing. And you did mention critical race theory as well. Everything is being done, like you said, in a lot of your posts, to blow up the nuclear family.
And I got to say, we got to, there needs to be more school choice, to where we stop funding the systems and we start funding students more. People need to be able to take that tax dollars that they're paying to the public schools, put their children in private schools or charter schools. And I advise you, here in Florida, there are a lot of scholarships available that people don't know about, where you can send your child to a public school, charter school, Christian school. My wife and I, we've homeschooled our children, and it's been incredible, knowing that they're being taught America's proper history, that they're being taught the Word of God, and none of this nonsense is being shoved upon them. So, there are many resources out there. I know parents are leaving the public school system in droves. So it needs to be refined, and if not, then it needs to be abolished.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same school system, that I grew up in public school. And thankfully, my daughter is almost 3. We're going to be putting her in a Christian school. My wife went to Christian school her whole career, her sister as well. So she's going to go to the same school that her mama went to. So we're looking forward to that. Yeah, we're looking forward to that for sure. One last thing. I want to show you a picture and get your thoughts on this.
Uh-oh. Ah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so that happened. Did you know, Joey?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Did you know it was Joey?
Oh, my gosh, of course. Yeah, that was at the last school board meeting where where they voted to get the masks off the kids. So, no, I saw him come in from across the room. And look, I knew Joey from back in the day when he was just first breaking in the Northeast. Was always real good to him. We always stayed in contact, even when I was in WWE in the early years. His view is way separate from mine. From my understanding, he doesn't know God, doesn't care about any of that stuff. And he's, super liberal from my understanding as well. So I saw him come into the room. He didn't see me. So, my attorney has sent me some screenshots of some interviews that he's done since then. He didn't notice me. I saw him walk in. I got up and I walked and I sat right next to him. And I have no reason to hate him or to hate anybody. Everybody's an image bearer of Jesus Christ. And so I sat down next to him. I was very friendly. And, somebody was speaking. I said, "Hey, Joey, how you doing, buddy?" And he's like shaking his legs. Hey, man. Hey, how do I speak? How do I speak? I was like, "Oh, you got to fill out a speaker card, man." But yeah, what's up? And then all of a sudden, like, he just made a big scene and got himself out of there. But he almost got tased by the local sheriff. Like, she had her hand on her taser. So that would have been quite a scene. But look, hey, Joey wants to use that situation to get his name out there and get himself over, and whatever it may be. Hey, all power to him. That's fine. That is what it is. I'm not concerned with it whatsoever. Like I said, I have my life that I'm living. I have my activities that I'm involved in, and the main thing is the masks were off the kids that night. So parental choice is back in the schools. If Joey wants to do whatever he's going to do, yeah, more power to him.
I mean, you think Joey would worry more about trying to get over on AEW than getting over at a school board meeting. But hey, whatever.
Maybe so, yeah.
Whatever makes him happy. A couple questions here in the chat before we go. Joe Feeney wants to know, are there a lot of guys in WWE?
We're taking chat questions.
Yeah, are there a lot of guys on the WWE roster who share some of your beliefs, but are they scared to express them publicly? You don't have to name names, but are there a lot of guys like Jackson and
There are a great number of conservatives in the WWE locker room, and they would always come up to me and be like, "Hey man, we're gonna be okay," or "Hey man, dude, what you said was awesome," or and like it's like pretty tippy top guys, some saying, "Hey man, I got a parlor account too, but I had a kayfabe name, so this, that, and the other." But yeah, there are a lot of conservatives back there. Look, for whatever reason, they don't want to kind of push back. Whenever the company started pushing this vaccine stuff, and they said when you come to work, you either got to wear a mask or you got to show proof of vaccination. Like that was the last straw for me, and so I showed up, defying, and I didn't wear a mask. Certainly wasn't going to take this experimental vaccine because it's against my religious liberty, and plus it's my personal business. And I was like, hey guys, we should like band together and like speak up about this. Like, some of you guys are like tippy top dudes. Like it would help if you spoke up about it. And they're like, no. So, hey man, like, to each their own with their reasoning. But I knew that I couldn't be silent about it anymore. They're pushing this deceptive globalist Bill Gates agenda of making sure that they get vaccines in people. It's just at that point when they're like, oh, let's roll up our sleeve. This is our shot to get back to normal life. At that point, I was like, ooh, nah, this ain't good anymore, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at Los Angeles. They're going back to masking, even people that are vaccinated because they don't want the vaccinated to contract the new Delta variant. And
yeah.
Yeah, that's
here we go with the Delta variant. I know, man. It's like
cycle, dude. Yeah, it's a loop that it's gonna be Groundhog Day for the rest of eternity. Because they're gonna keep pushing all this stuff on us, man.
At some point, you gotta put your foot down and stand up and say, "Give me liberty or give me death."
That's exactly right, and that's actually the name of my new political podcast that I'm planning on launching soon, called Liberty or Death. So nice. I'll have to definitely have you on that show once I launch that, because I know we could talk for a long time on that. What other responsibilities did you have at NXT other than reffing? I think you covered some of that, but you said you were a liaison in the talent relations department, right?
Yeah, I was that, and then I also was part of the ring crew, building the ring in different towns with local stagehands, tearing. A lot of times the referee will be the first one there at the building. They'll build the ring. They'll ref 4 or 5 matches, take the ring down, get on the bus, go to the next town, do it all over again. Very minimal sleep, always on the go, and just always working. So I did the ring crew. I also did television timing as well. It helped coach some classes here and there as well. So,
Big Evil Pops wants to know, do you worry about you and your family being safe with your conservative beliefs in this day and age?
We truly hold true to the Second Amendment in my house. So absolutely not.
Is WWE going woke?
It's been woke for a while. Woke wrestling entertainment.
That's exactly right. Was John Laurinaitis one of your detractors there? I think I read an article recently about you possibly releasing some text messages about him.
No, well, I put out there and exposed what they were doing, the medical discrimination for either come and wear a mask or take the vaccine, and it's happening in employers across the world. To me, it's just a violation of medical freedom. It's a violation of basic human rights, and it was just pure nonsense that they were going to say, if you're not vaccinated, then you have to continue to mask up and continue testing, keep having this PCR swab shoved up your nose each and every single week. It's just outright discrimination. No, Johnny and I got along great. Nothing against him. I didn't work with him that much, but look, people need to know what's going on there. So and also I wanted to use it as encouragement for people in other places. Like, look, don't feel like you have to be pressured into taking this thing or wearing a mask. At some point you got to take a stand, and your courage will be rewarded.
Was Roman Reigns? I mean, did Roman go home because of all that, or he was able to sit out for several months during the pandemic?
Are you talking about when? That was during the very, very beginning of COVID.
How come there weren't any repercussions towards him because he was a top guy?
He's a millionaire and he's the top guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously there's a double standard, within the company.
Top dog. Yeah, he's top dog.
Same way. Good to know that the wrestling business is still carny, but yeah,
he's incredible. I always got on well with him too. He was, we didn't work with each other very much, but he was always, Big Goose was always super cool. But when you're top of the food chain, you can do what you want.
No, you're exactly right. And that's the way it is in society, right? I mean, those with power and money are held to a different standard than we are.
Rules for thee, not for me.
I love that. That's gotta be, you gotta put that on a t-shirt. Yeah. Drake, I appreciate your time, brother. There's a lot more we can unpack and get into, but as we wrap it up here, as I've been trying to wrap up for 20 minutes, please put over the work that you're doing in human trafficking, as well as, look, I'm in the transportation business. I'm a dispatcher. I've been there for 15 years. I have to get training every year about the dangers of child trafficking and how truck drivers play a role in that. If truck drivers see something that's not on the up and up, that they're encouraged to say something. It happens a lot in the trucking business. It's a very, very serious thing. So I tell my guys, keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel, look at your surroundings. Always, always, always pay attention. If you don't see something that's right, call it in, because those are the guys in the front lines. Those are guys seeing it every day. If they hear stuff through the rest stops or the truck stops or the CBs, get out. They are the ones that are right there at the forefront that have to stop it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you go to OURrescue.org, they have a free Know the Signs of Trafficking course. It's a 45-minute course. You can stop and save it at any point. But that is a really good tool as far as learning the signs of human trafficking, what you could do to spot it, what you could do about it. Plug the human trafficking hotline into your phone, 1-888-373-7888. If you have any questions or any concerns, if you just kind of get that feeling that something's not right, whether you're at a hotel, truck stop, Waffle House, middle of the night, whatever, and you feel that something's not right, don't hesitate to make that phone call and make that report to the human trafficking hotline. And lastly, don't be afraid to speak up and to speak out for what you believe in, especially if you're a conservative, if you're a Christian. The world is trying to suppress us. They're trying to shut our voices down. We got to stand up and we got to fight back. And we got to fight back with righteousness. A lot of people, they have this view of this kind of progressive Christianity where it's like this John Lennon Jesus. It just goes around and is lovey-dovey. Like, yes, there is the Christ that loves all, and where the children and the lambs are coming to him. But also there's that Christ that went into the temple and turned the money changers' tables over and said, not in my Father's house. So there's a time where you've got to be a warrior. We are in spiritual battle right now. We're in a warfare. We're in a fight for our country. We're in a fight for our children. We're in a fight for our future. And so, don't be afraid to push back. Don't listen to the voices of this woke, cancel culture society, because they're not the real ones that are going to affect your everyday life. They might have all these trolls and bots on Instagram and Facebook. Don't pay attention to them. You finish the race. You fight the good fight. You stand up for what you believe in. And until Christ returns, we're going to pursue righteousness. Rob, thank you for having me on. If you want to help support me, go to prowrestlingtees.com/Drake Younger. And also at the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, I will also be having my own podcast coming out. It's going to be called the Uncanceled Podcast with Drake Wuertz. So you heard it right here. I'll be releasing some info about that on Instagram very soon.
That's fantastic, brother. I'm looking forward to that for sure. And I appreciate you taking the time out to speak with me, man. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Thanks, Rob. God bless you, brother. I appreciate it.
Same to you, brother. Take care, buddy.
Yep.
All right, guys, that was our interview with Drake Wuertz. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Maybe Drake really isn't so crazy after all. Fantastic conversation. A very captivating guy, a very humble guy too. Don't believe what you see on Twitter. Everybody thinks social media is the be all end all. The public judgment. You're always guilty in the court of public opinion. Look, seek out the facts, seek out the truth, listen to all sides, and determine it for yourself. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to people on Twitter or Facebook that are just trying to stir the pot or troll people or just trying to cause division in this country. Actually go out, do the research yourself, do the legwork, and take your beliefs and feel free to impose them on somebody else, because look, that's what we're here for. We're here to educate people. We're here to, tell the truth and speak the truth, which doesn't seem to be happening anymore, especially when it comes to media, to any of your billionaire companies like Amazon and Walmart and all this. Look, guys, it is a crazy world that we're in right now. Twitter is not the vocal majority. We, the people, are. And that's something you always have to remember. Stay in your lane, fight the good fight. And if you're on the left side, hey, go for it. Don't be afraid to believe in that stuff yourself. If that's truly what you believe in, stick with your convictions. But don't also be ignorant. And that goes for everybody. Like I said, take the time, do the research, form your own opinions, and go from there. Guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at Rad Rob Gaming. I am also a Twitch gaming streamer. You can check me out on twitch.tv/RadRobGaming. I stream every Tuesday night and Saturday night, 6 p.m. Central. That's twitch.tv/RadRobGaming, or check out my YouTube channel, which is Rad Rob Gaming. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, it is at RTW Brand, and you can send me an email, radturtleswrestling@gmail.com. Yes, that is what the RTW stands for. It's my initial podcast name, the Rad Turtles Wrestling Podcast. We shortened it to RTW just for branding purposes, but everybody always want to know what it stood for, and now you can see why I don't talk about it anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed this show. I had a fantastic time speaking with Drake. The audio version should be out tomorrow if I can get it edited in time tonight and put up. If not, it'll be up in the next couple of days. Anything you miss, you can watch right back here on HMG YouTube if you want to see the video version of it, or if you want to listen to it in your car. Check out RTW Rewind anywhere podcasts are found, or on the Hameen Media Group affiliate channel. So I hope you guys enjoyed this interview, and we'll be back next week for another edition of RTW Rewind. Until then, guys, I appreciate all your support. Thanks for everybody that hung out in the chat tonight on HMG YouTube channel. You guys are amazing. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.